Broadcasting from Baltimore, Maryland, this is 5x3 Radio, where strength is for everyone. I'm your host, Emily Sokolinski, owner of 5x3 Training, a strength and conditioning gym in Baltimore, along with my co-host, Rebecca Fishburne, founder of Cornerstone Strength Maryland. Each week, Rebecca and I will discuss the ins and outs of strength training, why there is a no one-size-fits-all approach, and why strength is so important in our daily lives. Thanks for spending some time with us today. Now, on with the show. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to 5x3 Radio. Rebecca and I are here today, once again with you. It's a cloudy day outside and freezing in my office because there's no sun.
Yeah.
If you saw us, you saw the two of us who were wearing layers upon layers. Rebecca has a blanket, actually.
I can't believe you just sold me out like that.
Dude, I'd have a blanket too if I could, but then I probably would get hot and I'd start to strip, and nobody needs to see that. So it's a good thing that we don't put this up on YouTube, like actual, video, just the audio, just the audio. So we are moving into a 4-part series. We did a brainstorming session, Rebecca and I, a couple weeks ago, and came up with some really good topics. And couple of those topics actually we realized would be too much for one podcast. So we decided to break them up into possibly a series of 4. So we are starting today with knowing your why. And I'm going to have Rebecca kind of start us off with that. But basically, we're talking like big picture. Why are we doing this? Why strength train? What's the reason behind that? What is your why? So without further ado, let me turn this over to Rebecca, and we're going to get started from there, because this is a topic that she came up with, started talking about, and I embraced it, and we went on and on and on, and started coming up with more and more ideas. So
yeah, so
your why.
I'd actually back up a step from there and talk about just generally a little bit like goal setting, because a lot, like you get a new client, you ask them some questions to get to know them, like, what is their goal? And most of the time when people tell you what their goal is, it's something vague, non-specific. It might be like a medium range goal, might be like just something really general, like I want to be stronger, or I want to be healthier, or I want to get fit, right? So those are pretty vague goals. Sometimes you get somebody who's got something a little bit more specific. Maybe there's an event coming up, it might be, they want to participate in the strong woman competition.
Yeah.
Maybe they watch that this year, they think, oh, I want to do that next year, right? Or it might be somebody who, like they've got a 10K that they're interested in running with their kid or their neighbor or something like that. And that's, at the end of June. So it might be a little bit more specific and sort of a medium range goal. But, that's when you start thinking about how you set a goal or how you define a goal. And, we've used the term before about a SMART goal,
right?
But some people may not be familiar with that concept. So that's an acronym, SMART, SMART, for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. And so, we can just sort of, I guess, give some examples. So
please.
Yeah, so if somebody comes in with sort of a vague goal, like they want to have more daily movement in their life, right? So maybe it's somebody who's already lifting, but they feel like their job, they're pretty sedentary. They've got the lifting down. They know they're going to do that 2 days a week, 3 days a week, but just in general, they feel like they're pretty sedentary and they want to move more. They want to walk more. Well, that's pretty vague. So you want to make that a little bit more specific. Talk about, that in terms of steps per day, if they've got one of those Apple Watches, or minutes on a treadmill, or miles or minutes walking outside. So something that's more specific, something that's measurable also kind of ties in with that. You want to be able to track the goal to see if you're able to meet that. Exactly. So not just increasing the number of steps per day, but kind of putting a number on that. So I don't have an Apple Watch. I don't know. Do you?
No, I have a
Yeah,
Fitbit.
yeah, anything like
I
that.
have a
Yeah,
Fitbit. Yeah, I have a Fitbit. And also, you don't even actually, I was just thinking, you don't even need a Fitbit. You don't need a watch. You can put your phone, everyone's got a smartphone these
yeah.
days. And if you put your phone in your pocket and walk around with that in your pocket all day or in your hand, or anytime you get up from from your desk, if you're working, grab your phone, start walking around, it will track your steps.
That'd be a lot of like just around and around in circles.
Right, it will track your steps. So I
Yeah.
mean, there's an app on the phone that actually tracks will track your steps. So whenever you have that phone in your hand, it's following
Yeah.
you. It's kind of
It's a little
scary,
creepy.
but it's following you. It is interesting. I have an app on my phone that tracks my steps, and it totally is off from the tracker on my
Oh,
wrist that's actually
well, do
tracking
you
me.
swing
So
your arms a lot when you walk or something?
I do swing my arms, and I also knit a lot while
So
sitting.
it counts
And
for knitting.
the Fitbit tracks my knitting because I guess my arms are spinning. But you don't necessarily need a Fitbit or an Apple Watch to track your steps. But yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, tracking your steps tracking is very, very specific.
Mhm.
Keep
Yeah,
going.
so
Yeah.
something that you can measure some way or other. So it might
Yes.
be steps, it might be miles, it might be minutes, it might be days per week that
Hmm.
you get out and
Hmm.
go for a walk, so that you do something additional besides going to the gym and doing lifting.
Right.
So
Right.
something that you can measure so that at the end of the week you can look back and say, like, I completed this 70% of the time, or that sort of
Hmm.
thing. Same concept as with our lifting. That's measured,
Absolutely.
and so that
Yep.
concept I think is more familiar to our lifters than it is to a lot of people in the general public. Something that's attainable, and this is a place where I sometimes
Yes.
get all up in my head and come up with these wild ideas about what I think I'm going to be able to do. And so everybody, it's good to be optimistic and enthusiastic and setting your goals, but if you
Yes.
set an overly ambitious goal and you don't reach it, that kind of feels like crap and it's demotivating. So there's a couple different ways you can approach that attainable goal.
Hmm.
You can think about, choosing a goal that, is like challenging but still attainable, or something that's like the low hanging fruit, so that you can kind of build up some momentum, and build on that. But yeah, like if I had a goal to, I, I don't know, be able to, okay, so in the strong woman competitions, when you're doing this stone, what's the one called where it's like
Right.
stone on the shelf heights?
Oh, well, stone, like it's stone to a
Yeah.
platform,
Okay. Yeah.
basically. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
one I'm never gonna do well on because I cannot grow taller. So I could get strong, but the tallest platform is pretty much always going to be outside of my reach.
Yeah, you've got to get that shoulder. You'd have to get that stone all the way to your head and basically pop up onto the shelf with the platform with your
Yeah.
head.
So choosing something
Yes.
that's attainable, that's realistic. I mean, sometimes you need somebody to talk you down and help
Yes.
you realize
Yeah,
that
but I
you're
wouldn't.
not as tall as you imagine that you are.
No, but like with that kind of goal, I wouldn't necessarily. I would not discourage somebody from not doing a strongwoman contest because there's a stone over bar or stone to platform, and the
Just
first
be selective about which year you participate.
the first stone is usually the lightest. So
Yeah.
probably you'll be able to get that stone to that platform. You got to be really short, and that's platform is usually not that high. So, don't give up on yourself just yet because of your height. It does cater to the taller person. True. True.
Yes.
It does cater. So you just know that
So
that one
not
event's going to be a little bit.
completely
No,
unattainable.
but that one event may be a little harder for you than the other events.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Right. But I mean, along those, I mean, I'm kind of like half joking around with that one, but like a lot of times people come in and if their general non-specific or non-smart goal is they want to lose weight, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You've got to be realistic about that.
Yes.
So if losing weight requires conscientiousness about your eating, it requires meal prep. If your schedule is so full and you're so overworked that you're not able to set aside the time for that, then maybe you want to be a little bit more like just reserved, judicious, something in setting your goal about
Yeah.
how much weight you want to lose.
Yeah.
So it might take you a little bit longer. So kind of something that, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm listening to you talk and I'm thinking about goals. And I know we talked about kind of New Year's resolutions, which I kind of sometimes think of
Right.
as
Mhm.
goals, and
Right.
how that's, how can we do better with our approach to goals? How can we do better with, what are we really asking for? What are we really thinking about doing? I think this goes along with like, what is your real why? What is the big question here? A lot of people want to lose weight, right? People want to get stronger. And they just kind of casually say that I want to be stronger. I want to lose weight. Okay. Are they really ready to put the effort and attention in to what it means to lose weight and what it means to get stronger? Right. And that's why I always tell people who come in and kind of have those two goals, in mind.
Mhm.
I say quote unquote goals. I want to get stronger. I also want to lose weight. I always tell them, focus on the stronger portion first,
Yeah.
right? And prove to me that you can show up 3 days a week, 2 days a week, 2 days a week, 3 days a week for 3 months and consistently train. I guarantee you by those 3 months, your goal of the weight loss might have come to the picture might now be more clear, right? Because there's this
Right,
kind of
right.
this vague, like, I want to lose weight. And maybe they do have weight to lose, but they're probably not ready. Most people are not ready. Those who say that aren't ready to actually do what it takes to lose that weight, right? Precision Nutrition has, a bunch of different questionnaires. And I remember
Right.
one of those questions, the main things that may have changed since 2015 when I was first certified, but they have a questionnaire it's a ready questionnaire. Are you ready?
Right, right. Yeah.
Are you ready to make this commitment? And it's so true that many people are, and the ones who are the ones who have been training for a while, right? And they've got into a groove now. They're into a routine. They've made a commitment to their training, to their strength program. Now they can start to focus primarily on their eating, and it still may be a little bit unclear, and they still may be in murky waters with that, but eventually things kind of start to unravel and they kind of see the bigger picture and they see a clearer path. Same thing with the strength training, right? In the beginning, you're starting off, but then it gets a little murky and you're not sure if this program's really working for me. And then all of a sudden you discover, like, in a week, wow, it is working. And everything's fallen into place. And I can look back and see where I was in September, and now I'm here in January. And then all of a sudden the eating starts to fall in line too. It's very messy. It's like weight loss is messy, right? It's the scale goes up and down, up and down, up and down, but where's the trend going? And I think I see that with people who, when they come in and they focus on strength, and then they've been there for a while and they see that the program's working. Now they can start to focus on the nutrition, and it's still a little messy. And then it starts to become a little bit clearer. They have to start to realize, I think it comes down to, like, what we're talking about. What's the real big picture here? What's their why?
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
why do they want to lose weight? How do
Let's
they?
get through let's get the R and the T
But it's
first.
kind of, it is, it's a little messy. It can be a little, it's hard to help someone navigate. It's hard for that person
Yeah.
to figure out how to navigate.
Well, but it's like what you're describing is it can change over time, right?
Mhm.
So, so anyway, the relevant bit is whatever your goal is, you want to choose
Right.
something that's related to it.
Right,
So, like,
right.
if you want to get stronger, then your SMART goal isn't going to be for you to run 5 miles every day.
No.
That's not going to help you get stronger.
Right.
I mean, that one's pretty self-evident and kind of obvious. And then time bound, right? In the same way that you're trying to measure your ability to reach your goal, there has to be a point at which you say, like, okay, I'm checking in now. Like, I'm
Right.
checking in, I'm measuring. So maybe that's something that you check in on every week, or, maybe it's the halfway mark between when you start training and when you're going to do your 10K, or, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
So anyway, those are sort of the guidelines or whatever between the with the SMART goal. And then you want to think about that over time. So, like, you're talking about somebody wants to get stronger. That's sort of the surface level
Mhm.
of the big picture.
Mhm.
And then that gets broken down into medium range goals. So, as you just described, the first 3-month medium range goal is be consistent, show up at the gym 2 or 3 days per week, whatever it is you've indicated that you're available or
Right.
that fits your schedule, then you're going to have another maybe 3-month goal, right? So maybe at that point, then like you're describing, you add in the nutrition or you add in that other component. And so each of those medium range goals, like 1 to 3 month length goals, can be broken down into daily goals. What are the steps that you're going to do every day? So it's Tuesday, it's my lift day, I'm going to show up. Coach is going to tell me what to do. As long as I get there, then I'm going to reach that goal. And so, that's sort of the short range, the day by day, the medium range, and then the long range. So the I want to get stronger is sort of like your big picture reason why. But you mentioned precision nutrition, and one of the worksheets that they have, or one of the questionnaires that they have, is they call it the 5 whys, right? So if someone says that they want to be stronger, basically you go through this process. It seems so redundant, but you're basically asking them why.
Right.
5 separate times. You want to get stronger. Why do you want to get stronger? Why do you want to achieve that? Why is that important to you? Why will that make a difference? And why will that even matter? Right. And kind of go through each of those like iterations of why, to kind of dig down deep, because I want to get stronger is usually motivated by something that is more meaningful to the person, that hits on like one of their core values,
right?
Or hits on, something about their life experience that makes them happy, or something that they imagine and not being at that point that will make them happy.
Right.
You start digging into that a little bit more, like, why do you want to get stronger? You ask a person that question 5 separate times, they're probably going to say something like, I don't know how this could go any number of ways, but usually it's like, oh, well, because I want to be more fit. Or I want to be able to do more things and not worry about injuring myself. Why is that important? Well, because my kids like to do all these activities on the weekend. They're in their 20s, or my grandkids come over and I watch them, and I need to be able to lift them and be confident that I'm not going to get hurt.
Yeah.
And then you ask, well, why is that important? What different, and then you start digging into what family matters to me. I want to be strong so that I can participate in family life, right? So that's a thing that's like a lot deeper and connects to a person's core values.
Absolutely.
And when you kind of ask the whys enough times to get below that surface level, to get into the core values, that's the stuff that when you have a crap day, you're tired, everything went wrong at work, you really just want to go home and get under a blanket, right? Since you already threw me under the bus for sitting here under a blanket.
It's just cold. It's cold. It's okay.
If you can,
I think I need one.
Gone through that whole process, that whole seemingly redundant process to excavate what your real why is, that's the thing that's going to get your ass in the gym on the day that you really just don't want to go.
That's right.
And there are always going to be those days.
I don't have those days.
Oh, Emily.
I don't. I'm serious.
You don't have days where you feel sick or tired.
Well, yeah, but I have to be really tired. Like I have to be like in my bed. I can't move to not go to the gym. I'm dead serious. Like we've talked about this before, that the motivation that some people don't have, like they just don't feel like going. I don't have that. I don't have that feeling.
I have days where I 100% don't want to do it, but I do it because it's habit.
Yeah.
Right? There are days when it is completely joyless, when lifting is completely joyless.
I don't know. I'm sure I have those times, but I will go, on Sunday, I'll go in the morning, or I'll go in the afternoon, or I'll make a point, like, I had brunch with a couple of my friends a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, that's cool. But, I'm going to come home, I'll digest my food, and I'll head to the gym. And I did. there's never a I'm not going to go. And maybe it is because it's habit with me. It's
Yeah.
just it's part of my daily living, but my life has been nothing but movement for so long.
Yeah.
And the gym has been so important to me, and it drives my why. And my why has changed over the years. It certainly has changed over the years, right? It's a much healthier why, why I'm doing this. But it's I'm being absolutely honest. Like I honestly have I don't understand for some people who they don't feel like going, but they go and it's habit. That's good. There's just this something that like it just fuels me. I mean, when I'm there, sometimes I'm tired and I'm like, oh, I got to get out of here. But being there and being under the bar or just doing whatever I'm doing, I guess maybe because it's such a habit and I'm such a creature of habit that's kind of what it is for me. But it also brings me a lot of peace and a lot of joy at the same time.
So I mean, I definitely rely on habit a lot of times. And part of it, when you get down to what is your why, like kind of like you're describing, like doing something physically active has been a part of my life every single day since I was a teenager.
Right.
So kind of not doing it is not honoring my identity.
Yes.
But even still, there are days when I just don't feel like it. And I have to be like, okay, this is just the thing I do. Like, just stop thinking about it and do it.
I had days when I was dancing that I didn't want to like go into the studio and rehearse. But I had to because I had a performance coming up. Definitely that. But there's never been a day where I'm like, I don't want to go press. I'm not going to deadlift today. Maybe usually if I say that, it's because I can go tomorrow. It's because I don't have to necessarily go today because I can train tomorrow. So I just move my training day from one day to the next.
Yeah. So, I mean,
is that the same thing? Is that it? Okay. That's okay.
Yeah. You have a day where you're like, I'm just not going to do it today, but I can do it tomorrow.
Yeah. It's more like I could do it today or tomorrow. It doesn't matter. And usually that's a Sunday or a Monday. If it's a Tuesday or a Thursday or a Friday, there is no exception. I have to do it that day.
Have to do it, otherwise you're
otherwise I miss I miss my day, and I'm really pissed off that I have to miss my day in April when we go down to Texas. I gotta miss my Friday. Yeah, it's gonna burn me. I may do something down there, I don't know, but it's having a goal, having a why. It's important. I always ask people when they come into the gym, what brings you here? Why are you here? Do you train somewhere else? Are you training right now? And it's usually, well, for a lot of people, it's, I've gone into one gym, but I really enjoy strength training. I want to get back to it. Or I've never done this before and I've always wanted to do it. Or, so most people have a very specific reason. They don't just come in and say, I want to be stronger, because I think when they choose a gym like ours, they choose to work with someone like you, they have an idea of what you offer. So it's specific to them. But even still, we have to you're right, you have to kind of dig a little deeper, because once it gets heavier and once they actually get into the program, that's when the true, like, what am I doing here? Why am I doing this comes out.
Yeah, that's when the person who shows up and says, I've always been curious about this, I want to try it. Right. That's when the rubber hits the road. When it starts to feel heavy. And then, I mean, I've had clients who have surprised me, who have been very reluctant to lift something that was heavy, that have been, I would say, maybe even overly concerned about having quote unquote perfect form, not wanting to add weight if they felt like their form wasn't perfect. Right. But they were so in touch with their real why, and I'm talking about, like, typically this is going to be an older client, right? An older client, 60, 70, whatever. Their why is that they want to be strong enough to live another day.
Right.
They're thinking ahead to, what if 10 years down the road, if I haven't built up enough muscle and I end up in the hospital or whatever, am I going to be able to be independent when I get out? And I mean, I don't know why that happens at 60. That's still pretty young, but that
of course.
starts to come to people. And often I think it's because, maybe they've got parents or aunts or uncles who they see this happening. They see relatives, older relatives that have become frail through inactivity, and maybe they have to take care of them. And they know they need the strength for that. And they also feel like, I don't want to be in that situation.
Yes.
In 20 years.
Yes. I hear that a lot. I hear that a lot.
Yeah.
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 My younger
it's almost
clients.
like the 50, 60, 70-year-old client has a much stronger why than oftentimes than the 20-year-old client.
Yeah, but some of my 30-year-old clients, though, their parents are in their 60s, right? Or maybe they're in their late 30s, and they might have an older parent. And they see their parent and they say, I don't want to be like, I don't want to be like my mom, or I don't want to be like my dad. I hear that a lot. I want to make sure that I'm not, because I genetically, I'm predisposed to this, or my parents have high blood pressure, or my parents have diabetes. And I just, I don't want to go down that route. There's too many issues or too many problems that are associated with that. And I want to make sure that I'm preparing myself, for the future. I always tell people it's not sexy to like talk about bone density, and sarcopenia. But it's part of our life. I mean, it's true. That's why you start to see older people, we were talking about this the other day, shuffling. Why do they shuffle? They shuffle because they're losing their balance. And if they take steps, they're going to fall. So they take little steps and they are shuffling. You still want to be able to walk. You want to be able to move. You want to be able to step up, step down. That's huge. Taking stairs. I mean, so many people stop taking stairs because they're scared of taking stairs because they don't have the strength to step up, or they're scared to go down a stair, and it's troubling for them. And then when they start to actually focus on getting a little stronger, that fear something goes away. So it's not sexy to talk about those things, but that's the reality. We are going to get older. People are living longer. And they're having children older, and those children are having children older. So you have a lot of older grandparents, 75-year-old grandparents with, newborn grandchildren. My grandmother was, when I was born, my grandmother was probably in her 50s. My mom had me at 25. So I had young grandparents, and, but many people don't have young parents anymore. Their parents are older. So and I say that, like, you have to, so thinking about, how am I going to take care of myself? How am I going to help my child take care of their child? That wasn't the case before. Now that is. So that why, I want to talk about, and maybe this is not the right time for this podcast, and you tell me about, so you have a why, but you've been training for a long time. Someone who's been training for many, many years. This is like maybe an older person, right? Who was very active when they were younger. And now they've lost that motivation. Have they lost their why? I feel like that's what, when you become unmotivated, and you're talking, you've been doing it for a long time, right? It's part of your lifestyle. It's a habit, but that habit is becoming increasingly tiresome and burdensome. Where do they need to find a why again? Is that?
I mean, I don't think it hurts to go through that five why inquiry at any point, but I don't think necessarily that a person's why would have changed. I think, when you're talking about the medium range and the day-to-day goals that allow you to reach that big level, long-term goal, that big why. Like, if the big why is you want to be strong and active to be able to participate in family events even when you're 80, 90 years old, right? The way you go about ensuring that you're able to do that might be different, right? So maybe if a person is also having, I don't know, balance issues
Mhm.
or something, like sometimes with hearing or vestibular stuff, like as they age, maybe deadlifts or barbell back squats are something that uh, maybe the risk to reward changes for
Mhm.
them with
Mhm.
that. And maybe they find a substitute way
Mhm.
to build strength, right? Like there are other ways to build strength, other ways to maintain strength. And so maybe at that, like maybe they just, go through that 5-question why, figure out what their big picture why is,
Yeah.
their core value, and then see if what they're doing in terms of medium range goals and day-to-day stuff fits that long-term why, but also in a way that they're comfortable and confident in doing.
Mhm. Mhm.
Maybe that's the bit that needs to change. I mean, the big why could have changed.
Yeah. 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 I mean,
Maybe they're just sort of like, okay, I'm ready for this to just all be done.
yeah. I mean, you've been, I mean, in the 14 years that I've been training, I mean, I've been going to the gym since I was 18 when I started college. So let's see, that's 31 years. Yeah, of going to the gym. But the past 14 years has been focused more on obviously what I'm doing now. Since I opened my gym, since we started the program. I mean, Diego and I were always going to the gym, but now there's a real specific reason, and it's fantastic. It's better than it's ever been, of course. But over the 14 years, I've changed my why. I
Yeah.
mean, my programs have changed off and on
Yeah.
based on what state of mind I was in, or if I had to deal with any injuries, or if it just was like a month where I needed a break, from really, from training with a bar and just did more, kettlebell work. I mean, I can clearly remember doing that. And now I've got a program that, Jay's been working with me on. He's been coaching me, and it's similar to what I was doing before, but I have somebody giving me more guidance, right? Giving me guidance on everything. And it's wonderful. And I'm sure that in a couple months, I'll come to him and I'll say, I really want to focus on this now. I mean, or not. I just keep going with what I'm doing and just start to change the exercises up a bit because everything is working. But there's no reason why you can't change your program off and on 3 days a week, 4 days a week, 5 days a week, one big lift, two big lifts. I mean, it's your program, right? It's your training, it's your schedule. It's, what you want to get out of it, but you have to know what you want to get out of it. And if you don't know why you're doing something, I like the 5 whys. Really sit back and ask yourself, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? What's important to me? Is this important to me? Or is going for a walk more important to me? And I'll come back to this. I think that, I mean, for anybody, I think everybody should be doing some sort of strength training, hands down. You just can't stop. You shouldn't stop, right? Because when you stop, we immediately, as the older we get, we start to lose it pretty quickly, pretty rapidly, right? The younger you are, the longer you can sustain what you've built up. The older you are, the less, you start to lose that within a week or 2 weeks. So doing something is better than doing nothing. And I guess it's hard though when the motivation is not there. And what motivates us, and that's for our next podcast. I think we're talking about that, but that's really ties into this. And the word motivation is, I can't motivate somebody to do something. I can encourage, I can support, I can talk through it, but it has to come from within. And it comes back to that. What am I doing? Why am I doing this? What are my reasons for?
Yeah, well, you're talking about with motivation, internal versus external motivation. So if you're tapped into what your big picture why is, that's sort of more an internal motivation. There are things that you can do
Right.
to build and reinforce the structure around that to help create external motivation as well. So like, I mean, even just things like if you join a gym, people are expecting you to show up.
Right.
If you talk about what you're working on or what you're doing or what your goal is, there's a level of accountability just in talking about it to friends and family, because then that's going to be on their radar. And then, you know, when you talk to them again, they're like, oh, well, you know, have you gone to the gym recently? Or so how are your lifts going? Or, you know, any number of things that they might mention in conversation. You know, like creating the habit, putting it in your calendar, writing it down, scheduling that time. You know, it's there, it's an appointment. Like some people are very appointment and calendar driven.
Right.
So kind of knowing what your big picture why is, knowing what is going to get your ass out the door when you need a little nudge, right? And so we're talking about you and me. That's sort of like in our DNA. Sometimes I don't want to do it, but I do it anyway. Sometimes it's not fun, but it's just who I am. And some people are not that way, but they're calendar driven, or they are they, you know, like if they have a buddy that's expecting them, a gym buddy, you know, maybe they feel more accountable to someone else than to their own future self. And so if you've got somebody that's expecting you, a trainer, or just people at the gym, or family members that know that that's what you're doing, like a training log, you know, like some people are very progress driven. And so, you know, if you've got a spreadsheet or a tracker that shows your progress, turns your day-to-day workout into a graph, and you can kind of see, okay, there was a little dip here, but the general trend is some people are visual and data driven and they want to see it. So kind of knowing who you are and what's gonna help hold you accountable is helpful also. And that's helpful in sort of the day-to-day. And then if you do sort of day-to-day feel like, oh God, the joy has just been sucked out of this, you know, that's like a regular thing. You know, but you still feel committed to your big picture why, healthy aging, then maybe, like you're talking about, find a different program that's going to help you build, you know, that's a strength training program for 3 weeks or 3 months or,
I like that you talked about everything except a number goal. And that's fine when you are a beginner. Right. I love teaching novices. I love teaching working with people who've never done this before, because, or maybe they've done it in the past, but they never really felt like they were doing as well as they could. And now all of a sudden they're seeing numbers in their book, right? Numbers on the bar. And it's exciting. It's like, oh my God, you know, I can't believe I'm pressing 55 pounds and it's only been 3 months. And at my last gym, I only ever got to 35 pounds. This is remarkable. This is fantastic. So they're very number driven because it means improvement. It means progress. I think after a while, after you've been training for a while, if you are still number driven, it starts to suck the life out of you. It starts to frustrate you. It starts to, you know, make you not want to train. Right. And that's what I think I see with people who you know, start to want that heavier weight more and more and more, but they're beating themselves up so much because they're not going to get to that weight. They're older. They've been training for a long time. Maybe they hit their genetic potential way back, and they probably did. It's what is your why now? Like why are you still caught up on, I need that 315 squat. I need that 405-pound deadlift. You know, do you really? I mean, aren't you happy with that 275-pound deadlift? That's pretty impressive, considering that you're deadlifting 120. So I think that number is great as for somebody who's new to kind of really see the progress that's happened in a short amount of time. But as we get into it, that number becomes, I think, less and less what the focus is, and more on, I'm continuing to lift. I feel better with my strength. I'm not using a belt now when I used to use a belt. My legs feel stronger. I'm able to do more variation in my exercises. This is easier in my life. And it's all a result of just, the fact that I'm training and I have a program and I've made some adjustments and I have a coach who's helping me figure out, where do I go from here? That's a healthier, for me, a healthier outlook. I mean, we want to be progressing. Yes. Not saying we don't want to add weight to the bar, but I think focusing on just that number solely can start to eat at you.
Well, it's like we talk a lot of times about body image and body weight and stuff like that. And so then, if the number on the bar, the weight on the bar is your sole determining factor about whether you're successful or not, that can be frustrating, in the same way that scale weight, if that's the only way that you're measuring, that can be frustrating.
Exactly.
So there's other ways to measure and it's good to have a couple different mental frameworks for considering whether your lifts are successful or whether you're making progress, instead of just being like married to one.
Right. But that's what I mean. That's why I think, like, at the beginning, I definitely use numbers to encourage people. I definitely encourage that.
In the beginning, that is really motivating.
It's really motivating.
And speaking like from the perspective of someone who had done strictly cardio and not a lot of strength training at all, to be like, oh my God, I lifted that much.
Yeah.
Like, is that for real?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's everything. And you see the excitement on, my lifters' faces when they hit a new number. And I'm like, yeah, man, 115 next week for your bench, or big plates on, for your squat. Like, we're hitting a big number here. We got to put those 45s on, put the big wheels on. I mean, it's like a rite of passage, right? Deadlifting 135, squatting 135, benching your body weight if you're a guy, that kind of thing. I mean, it's, there's kind of like certain numbers, and it's fun. Years later, who cares? I mean, it's kind of like, you done that, did that. It doesn't mean if you're not squatting 225, this year because you squatted it 2 years ago. Well, shit, it's happened. Maybe, you've gotten older. Maybe you had a surgery. Maybe this happened. Are you still moving? Yes. Are you still training? Yes. Are you still making progress? And yes. And I can certainly say that about myself. I mean, what I did 2 years ago at my Stronger Together meet, I couldn't squat that weight today. But that's because other things have occurred between then and now. But there's so much better about my body and my program and my health and my work. It's not centered around that number. It's never been centered around a number. And I like that analogy to your body weight too. Your body weight, what you weigh, is not who you are. What you lift today is not who you are. What you lift tomorrow is not who you are. It's that you continue to train. If that is your why, if that is something you want to do and you want to see, because it makes you feel good, because it gives you that endorphin rush, or it gives you that motivation to then, go and take do that hike, that 5-mile hike that you want to do. I had a client who just went down to, Argentina, and she and her husband were in Patagonia, and then they went to Buenos Aires, and she came back and jumped right back into her training. And I said, how was it? She goes, it was fabulous. And, if having someone like that, like, be able to go down and like hike and hit like 30,000 steps one day or something like that, and then come back and like get right up back onto the bar again, was like, this is a woman in the late 50s, early 60s, late 50s. It's, it's fantastic. And she came to us with, some knee issues and some back issues, and she's off in the Patagonia,
awesome,
hiking around. So that, it's like, that is what drives her. She sees improvement. She feels improvement, which she wasn't getting before when she was training elsewhere. That's her why. Why is she doing this? And sometimes we might have to kind of come back to that, and face that, because if we find ourselves not motivated.
Well, I mean, that's the sort of situation where, like, if the big picture why is to be able to be active on vacations, to take adventures like that, then getting hung up on whatever the amount of weight on the bar is,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
going to be counterproductive, because
Yeah.
if you're successful in actualizing your big picture why of going on these active vacations, that's time off from lifting. You're going to have to keep kind of going through this process of
Yeah.
resetting. So,
Yeah.
you know, or time off, you know, impacting the weight on the bar.
Yeah. So that's why I think that's an important piece to talk about, because I like that you've actually talked about everything except number, like, because I feel like that is, it's great to have a goal. It's great to say, I like to press 135 but, and that's exciting. And that's something that will, I'm sure that, will happen, but, eventually that number doesn't, your self-worth should not be wrapped up in a number.
Right. Well, but even if you go through the 5 why process, if somebody comes in and they say, like, okay, like, let's just do that example, right? If they're hung up on a number and they come in and they say, what is your goal? What is your why? Why are you here? I'm here because I want to be strong enough to deadlift 405.
Yeah.
Right. So, why are you doing that? Oh, because it makes me feel good about myself because I reached that goal, right? So that's your first why. Why do you want to achieve that? Right. So I can brag to my friends.
Right.
Right. And why is that important to you? Right. It starts to get harder to answer these questions with just a straight up number, right? Why is that important to you? Why will that make a difference? Why will that matter? Right. So once you get down to that level, like, I want to do a 405 deadlift, why will that matter?
Yeah.
Right. Well, okay, maybe that matters because then that means I'm strong enough to, I don't know, there's got to be something else that's like connected to a core value, who you are, or something that's more essential than just a number on the bar.
It's totally different. Yeah, it's totally different than somebody who comes in and, starts to train and wants to maybe get bigger. Because they want to put some weight on. They want to put some weight on. They want to put some mass on, muscle. Like, I'm thinking about one of my clients who's been with us for a couple of years now. And all of a sudden, he's at a 385-pound deadlift. Well, now it's like, okay, I'm going to hit 405. Yeah. Now the number's in his head. The number wasn't in his head when he was deadlifting at 175. He had no, if you asked him, what do you want to deadlift next week? He's like, 180. I'd like to deadlift 180. So, but when you get to 385, that 405 is right down the road. Of course it is. But you come in saying, I want to deadlift 405, and you've never deadlifted in your life and you've never trained your life. Okay, that's great. How about we deadlift 135? Let's start there. And then we can see if you're going to hang around long enough to get to 405, because those who, like my clients who say they want to deadlift 500, what they do is they start to deadlift. It becomes a serious matter, and you see them in the gym week in, week out, and their program is just a bunch of deadlifting because they have this goal, but they're doing it right. They know how to reach that goal. That's a completely different person. That's somebody who's been training for a while too, right? And someone who's also, pretty gifted.
And I still would say, I think the deadlift, the 500, or, whatever it is going to end up falling more in the medium range goal, as opposed to the essential. What is your why? You got to keep digging.
Yeah, you do. You have to keep digging, because the person may decide that, wow, that really isn't my goal. That this is the why. This is my why.
Discover that there's something more to it, but something that's meaningful personally. Why does that matter to you? Right? Why is it important to you? Right? That's a great goal.
Yeah.
Right. But why is that important to you?
Yeah.
And kind of, really digging into that.
Yep.
I've seen recently a couple really nice videos that Sully put out, and they're not recent videos. I just saw them recently. Because one of my clients' fathers trains with Sully. And so, and this was because I was sort of looking through this, his video backlog specifically for John Clausen Senior videos, because my father-in-law just had surgery recently. I think he's 82. And then some complications afterwards. So this whole concept of, what is my why at this
Right.
point,
Right.
about being able to maintain strength, like his why at this point, building back the strength, right? So the 401k, right? That whole concept. And I just wanted to be able to show him some videos that I thought, and two of them that really kind of stick in my mind at this point in relation to this conversation is there's the one, and I think it got played pretty often. I think it was called uplifting, right? So it was sort of separated out. So the lift in the word uplifting really stood out. But one of the things that John Clausen Sr.'s daughters said, daughter or daughter-in-law, I don't remember. But she talked about sort of almost this like part of his why is like almost a sense of responsibility towards other people to show them that this is possible. And she described it as like he knew that eyes were on him and that this was his legacy.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that one was really good. And then there was another one. I think it might have been what was one of the morning shows picked it up. And he had a surgery, and the fact, and so the fact that he had built up a fair amount of muscle prior to the surgery allowed him to have enough of a cushion to make a good recovery afterwards. But then you can also, it's just like the being able to keep your vision focused on the long-term why is so important in a situation like that. Because you come back from an injury, you come back from a surgery, whatever you used to deadlift, that is not anywhere near what you're doing anymore. And so to be able to keep the eyes on the bigger picture, recognize where you are at the moment, be okay with that, and then set a 3-month medium range goal that's going to be vastly different than what you thought it was going to be 6 months ago. So being able to be adaptable is a benefit to having that bigger why.
That's right.
That bigger reason why.
That's
when you
right.
need to change your medium range goal
That's
and
right.
change your day-to-day goals, you can do that if you've really honed in on the big why.
I agree. I think we end there. That's a good part. That's a good place to end. Because it kind of like, so you summed everything up and that, because I think that's that will help us with our next podcast that we'll do to carry on this theme of, once you know your why, okay, now what do you do about it? And it's okay to change it. It's okay to be, but you should always come back to that. And it's okay to come back to that, like not be frustrated, like, oh, well, I thought I knew what I wanted, but it's okay. Things are going to change. As you said, surgeries are going to happen. Long-term, short-term goals can be adjusted, nothing set in stone, but having something to work towards and knowing what you're really doing and why you're doing it is most important. So, we'll pick up with this conversation again in a couple weeks with with part 2 of knowing your why. Thank you for joining us today for our first podcast on this 4-part series. If you've got questions or comments or concerns on anything that we talked about today, please, of course, always feel free to contact us, reach out to us at Emily@5by3.com or Rebecca
at cornerstonestrengthmaryland@gmail.com.
We welcome your comments and questions, and we will always try to address your comments and questions in our podcast if we have them. So please definitely always reach out to us if you've got any. And once again, Charm City Strongwoman contest has opened for registration. The contest is Sunday, June 9th from 9:30 a.m. till 1:30 p.m. And fundraising will begin sometime the end of April, beginning of May. And I look forward to maybe hearing from you about that contest, getting your support. And if you're local, even attending the contest. Have a great week, and we'll be back in a couple weeks with part 2 of our Knowing Your Why. Thanks, Rebecca.
See ya. Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to 5x3 Radio with Emily and Rebecca. If you like our show and want to know more about 5x3 training, please visit us at www.5, that's FIVE, 3.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram. To learn more about Rebecca, please visit her website, cornerstonestrengthmaryland.com. Thanks for listening and have a great week.